Hello and welcome to TidyX episode 156. TidyX's screencast, we go through and explain how our code works. My name's Ellis Hughes.
And my name's Patrick Ward. Thanks for checking in with us at TidyX episode 156. Tongue twister there.
Oh,
As always, please like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Great way to get in touch with us. Maybe one of your questions will end up on the show. Additionally, we do have a Patreon page, and we're always appreciative of anything you'd like to give and support our work if you feel like our work has helped you. That said, we're going to jump into episode 156, which picks up from 157. We introduced a few functions in 157, functions that we talked about in prior episodes. We're going to take those functions and we're going to show you now how to create your own R package with functions so that you can specify to the user what those functions are doing, how to use them, and then hopefully building up vignettes so that people can see them in action and things like that.
yep, exactly. So yeah, we're this is going to be based on 155, so we're not going to go into exactly how these functions work. If you want to know, there'll be a link right up above here that you can go to and follow that to learn more. So we've already taken a couple steps here because we didn't feel like, it's kind of hard to do live because then I'm typing and you're just seeing me mess up typing. So there's 3 steps that we've done already to prepare our package. First, we use the use this create package function. That is what creates the skeleton for our package. So it's going to create a lot of the template files that we need to be using, such as the description file, the creating the R folder, as well as a few other folders that we need to, you just need for a package, minimal package.
Right.
The next thing is we went and filled out the description file. We covered that a few episodes ago when we created our data package. Essentially, it's putting in the title of the package there, who we are, and a short little description of what this package contains. And then we also added an MIT license just to give it a license. We're not licensed people. Don't ask us which one's the best one. There's always debates, and I'm not a person that would know more about that. The next thing is we need to, now that we have our package description created and our license and whatnot, we actually need the code. In the last series where we created a data package, there wasn't really code to be added. Now we actually have these functions that we've created and want to put them into a package. And so you put them in our scripts inside of the R folder. So we can, in the lower right hand side here, we have our TidyX base package. And in there we have this R folder. So the way that you create a new R script really easily without having to, click on the upper left here, save it, and then navigate your file explorer when you actually go to save this, you can use the use_R function where it'll create that R script for you, and open it up into your pane, into your RStudio IDE up here. And so we've got 2 that we've already created, beta dists and gamma dists, and these for our beta and gamma distributions that we talked about already. So let's jump into them and start explaining how they work. Patrick, do you want to talk us through this first Roxygen block?
Yeah, so we're going to start with the beta distribution functions, which we talked about last week. So as you can see, we have some information here that we're basically providing the user with an understanding of what these functions are and how they're going to be used. We went through kind of all of the other stuff in the previous episodes about setting up your package, where you're basically specifying to the user, this is what this is. This is how it should work. The Roxygen part of this is telling us exactly how these functions can be used. So for example, on line 9 and 11, we specifically set at parameter, which basically is telling the user which of the parameters within the function. So you're going to want to specify one of these per parameter, what these parameters are supposed to be. So in this case, population average, as we talked about last time, is going to be a vector of at least length 1, and it's going to describe, or not a vector, sorry, it is a single number describing the average or the expected value for that population. Similarly, population var is going to be a single numeric value that's explaining the variance for that population. So we need those 2 parameters for this function to go. And then at export allows this little report of the function to be created. So this is where, if someone were to type in $get beta parameters, they would be getting information from this function. So we put the export down there. Now all we do is just drop our function into the actual R script. So we get rid of the hashtag and the ticks, and we drop it into the R script. We went over the nuts and bolts of what this function is last time, but basically it's going to take the population average and the population variance and return an alpha and a beta parameter for the beta distribution of that population, and it's going to do so in list format. So there we see the information about the packet or about the function in the help pane. So we just get beta parameters, and we get this help pane that gives us the information, what the arguments are, and tells us how we're going to use this function.
Yep, so all of this is copied over. Export also makes it so that the function will be shared externally to the package, right? So if you don't export your function, the function will still exist inside of your R package, but your users won't be able to access it. So this is really important in a way where you should think about how you're designing your package, because you can write a number of functions inside of your R package that you just want to use internally. They're kind of functions that aren't going to be useful to the user, but you need to use them internally. Otherwise, you're copying and pasting a bunch of code. And so using this @export tag allows you to tell Roxygen, hey, I actually do want to share this out with my users, and I do want them to have access to this function. And so it allows you to design packages that are very complicated, but the only with lots of functions inside of them, but only the functions that the user needs to care about are the ones that are exported and the ones they will readily see. So that is high level the Roxygen block for get beta parameters, but that's not the only way that you can construct your Roxygen comments, because this is a very straightforward. It's going to now take the function name get beta parameters to create the RD file or the help file. That's what you see when you type $get beta parameters, is the documentation for get beta parameters. And so it names it based off that. But I think we've all seen situations where you have a Roxygen or a help page that actually describes a couple different functions for us. And so there's a way to do that and signify that in Roxygen too as well. So just like in our last episode, we're going to talk about these two functions, beta mu and beta sd, together, because we also are going to want to export them together. And so the way you can go about doing that is you have your beta mu function just as we had it before, and up above it we have our Roxygen block. We have our @title, which is beta distribution parameter for mu and sd. So we are already deciding that we're going to be combining beta mu and beta sd together into a single help page. We're going to have this description specifically for beta mu, where it calculates the mean from the alpha and beta parameters, and we have our @params that go into the beta mu, alpha and beta, in their description of what they are. The way that we identify that we want to combine them together is we use this @rdName function, or Roxygen tag. And right after we define that, we say this is going to be the name of our RD file, which is the help file that I was talking about. So I'm just calling it beta. You could call it whatever you want. It's whatever makes sense in your situation. We could have called it beta mu underscore sd if we wanted to be a little bit more specific. Here I'm being a little bit lazy. And then again, I have that @export tag there. So then for beta sd, I don't need to define a title, because the title's already defined in beta mu. So I just add a description saying what beta sd is. I want this to, again, go to the beta RD file or help file. And again, I also want to export it. So now when I type in my console $beta, enter, it brings up both of them together. It's got the two different descriptions that I've got here, both those files. And then it's also importantly not repeating our arguments. So I only had to define what alpha and beta were once in my documentation as opposed to multiple times. But you don't just access this through beta or $beta. Of course, you can do beta mu, because typically we're looking for specific functions. But again, it'll bring us back to the same help page Again, it brought that up again. And so we're going to take a similar approach here to the posterior functions. This time we were combining them together as well. We have a bunch of the different parameters, prior alpha, prior beta, and success with their definitions, combined these together. So the point is here we're also not adding any additional information. So we decided to write all the information about posterior functions in the first Roxygen tag block and combined it together. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So now if we type question mark posterior
The whole
beta,
the whole deal, the full meal deal.
we get all of these together, and it was a lot simpler to write.
Mm-hmm.
But so far we've had to write a bunch of Roxygen tags for every single function that we've got, and it's a little obnoxious to have to do that because you end up repeating yourself a lot, right? Especially because we also expect all of these functions to be used essentially at the same time, or at the very least, used together to
Mm-hmm.
calculate our alpha and beta parameters, and then derive our posteriors. So there's another way that we could approach this documentation process, and that's through just writing one really big Roxygen block.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we did this for the gamma distribution to show you a different way that you could approach documentation. To be clear, I don't think, or I'm not trying to say that there's one way that's better than the other. It really depends on the package that you have and how you're trying to group information together. Because at the end of the day, this is for our users. This is for the people that are using our package, and we want to make it as easy for them to get the information and as clear as possible to them in order to use it. Documentation shouldn't be an approach of dry, right? You don't want to only say it once. Documentation, you actually do want to say it many times. You want to repeat yourself as much as possible so that our users can understand and it's very clear to them what's going on. So Patrick, do you want to take a second to talk through this Roxygen block for us?
Yeah, this one is basically, as Ellis said, it's going to give us the entire suite of information up front, and we're just going to rope all of the functions together. You'd see this if you did like question mark apply, and you'll get all of the kind of vectorized functions in base R, sapply, tapply, etc. So we set it up with the title, a general description, and provide some information, and then we get into specifying exactly what the parameters are for the below function. So we have to specify all of the parameters because we're only doing this one time. So it's the population average, the variance, alpha, beta, in this case for the gamma distribution. The N is number of successes, and then the success is the total counts of successes. Then we just dump our functions in again with that information specific to the RD name. So they're all going to go under the same RD name. And then export, making sure again that this function, or sorry, these suite of functions will be accessible to your end users. So they're not sort of hidden in the background. So if we run all of this together, we get a full help page, which gives us again the description, the usage. So it gives us the functions that are available here, and then the arguments. So these are the arguments that are going to go. You can see the arguments in the functions up above under usage. These are defining what those arguments are so that it's explicit for the user to know exactly what it is they're going to place in there. And then, of course, writing some little vignettes and how-tos also help because they give people kind of close the loop and give them an example to play with and see.
Yep, exactly. So this is kind of a simplified approach to documentation that we wanted to cover to give you a good idea of what are the different techniques that you might use at a very high level to provide minimum documentation for your functions. This is definitely not exhaustive. There are many more Roxygen tags that exist that we will get into in the next episode. But these are the bare minimum that you need to do to make it so that your users can understand what is it that I'm supposed to be passing to these functions,
Right.
and make it different strategies you can have for grouping that information together. This is not a complete Roxygen help page because usually there's
Hmm.
examples, there's other links, there's a lot more information that we can put into our Roxygen tags that we will get to in the next episode. So if you haven't subscribed and asked for the notifications, you should do so right now.
Mhm.
And so with that, that is a minimum set of documentation that you should generate for your R packages using our functions from TidyX Base series um, as an example function. With that, I think we're going to call it for episode 156. As always, my name's Ellis Hughes, and you can find me on various social media sites at Ellis_Hughes.
My name's Patrick Ward. You can find me on X at OSPPatrick, or you can find the screencast at tidy_explain, tidy.explained@gmail.com is where people can email us, but usually liking and subscribing, as Alice mentioned, on that YouTube channel. That is the way to get in touch with us the fastest and get your questions answered. We do have a Patreon page. We love doing the show. And if you love the show and you feel like we've helped you in some way, any donation to our work to support the show is greatly appreciated. And that said, that's episode 156.
All right. Thank you all so much, and keep on exploring your world.